Done. Now, all right, number 5 looks like so. You're given a quadratic equation. This is a quadratic equation. And what's some terminology that you would be given for one like this? I know I had specific things I wanted you to find, and we'll find all those. But some things that you would be told or asked in a problem, and I think you had this on a test, it just said solve, correct? And some of us had issues of understanding what that means. And I told you, when they say solve quadratics, it's the same thing as asking for the x-intercepts or asking for the zeros. Those are basically the 3 ways that they're going to talk about the x-intercepts of a quadratic equation, is they want to either find the zeros, find the x-intercepts, or they're telling you to solve it. All right? And I know you had a portion on your test that asked you, said solve, and it didn't say solve by this or solve by that. And some of you were asking me questions during the test. Hey, am I supposed to put the vertex? Am I supposed to write it in it? No, it says solve. You should know what solve means. And that's what we're going to do first, and then we'll knife through the rest of it, okay? And we'll use all that to get our information. So the questions I asked you to also do were, you know, find the equation. The equation's already given to us. What I did for the equation is, first of all, I can't solve it in this form, can I? I can't do that. So first thing I got to do is I got to move it over. Can anybody tell me why I have to move it over? Other than it's just a process that we have to do, why?
Because you have to get y to 0.
Why? Why do we get y? You're totally right. Why is, ma'am? Okay. It's important that we know now the y is 0. That's important. Where on the graph is the y 0?
On the opposite side of the x-intercept.
The x-intercept. On the x-axis, the y value is always 0. Because when I go left or right on the x-axis, I'm never going up or down. So if I'm never going up or down, that value is 0. That's the reason why we do it. It's not, oh, I'm going to solve it and go, oh, I got to move it over because that's the process I got to do. It's got to have some meaning behind it. All right, so now it's in a situation at which we can solve. It's in a situation we can solve. And so
Can I borrow 2 Chromebooks?
all right. So what is that called? That's the discriminant. What does the discriminant tell us? What is the discriminant telling us? It's going to tell us what our x-intercepts are, whether we're going to have 2, whether we're going to have 2 factored, whether we're going to have zeros, whether we're going to have none. It's going to tell us that. All right? The reason why it's important is because it's the underneath version of the quadratic formula. All right, so there we go. I'm going to get 16 minus, what is 16 times negative 9? Negative 144. Okay, that negative negative makes this. So we're going to have 16 plus 144 is 160. Okay? I'm going to show your answers in 2 ways. Yes, sir?
Never mind. I see it.
Okay. I'm going to show your answers in 2 ways here. What I had on the answer key showed it in decimal form, which is no problem, because when I initially told you to do this, we didn't talk about simplifying the radicals. Okay? And I'm going to show you it also in the simplified radical form. I'm going to show you answers both ways. Okay? So, we know this. Is that a perfect square? It's not a perfect square, and since it's not a perfect square, I can't factor it. Because if I take the square root of 160, I'm going to get a decimal. So therefore, I know I can't factor it. It's not going to work out to something nice and pretty. All right? And so right here, I'm going to go ahead and simplify that. Okay? What are some factors that give me 160? Here's the question I asked you. What is the greatest perfect square inside of 160? Huh? What about 16? 16 times 10 is 160. Is 16 a perfect square?
Yes.
Is 10 a perfect square?
No.
Is there perfect squares inside of 10?
Yes.
2 and 5 make 10. Neither one of those are perfect squares, right? And so what this is going to come out to is this is going to go 16 times 10, which is 4 times 4 times 10. 1 comes out, 1's eliminated. 4 square roots of 10 is what you're going to have. Okay? Now, I know that when you first did this assignment that you just put it in the calculator, and that's fine. But this is a simplified version. Now we're going to go to it and we're going to get the x-intercepts. We're going to solve it. We're going to find the zeros. All the same terminology by using the quadratic formula. Quadratic formula is negative b plus or minus the square root b squared minus 4ac, which is really the discriminant, divided by 2 times a. Okay? 2 times a. And now we're going to plug in our numbers from our equation. So my b is going to be negative 4 plus or minus. I'm going to replace the discriminant with my simplified form. Right here, 4 square roots of 10 all over 2 times a, which is 8, correct? All right. Remember, and I'll say I'm going to give you the decimal in just a minute. We had to look at the triangle of these numbers. Those numbers had to have the common factor. It doesn't go with the number underneath the radical. So what's common between negative 4, 4, and 8? 4 is, right? 4 is. So this is going to simplify down. If I was simplifying the radical, it's going to be negative 1 plus or minus square root of 10 all over 2, right? Right?
How did you get the negative 1?
Okay, because it's negative b, so my b was positive up here, so when I plug it in, it makes it negative. And so 4 goes into 4 one time. 4 also goes into negative 4 negative 1 time. All right? Everybody okay on that? Now, the reason why I wanted to show you that is because you take the ACT. Those are going to be multiple choice answers, multiple choice questions. They might not give it to you in decimal form. 9 times out of 10, they're not going to give it to you in decimal form. Okay? But if I put this into my calculator, okay, if I put that into my calculator, I'm going to straight up go negative 1 plus, let me put parentheses around it. Parentheses negative 1 plus square root of 10, close the parentheses, divided by 2. That's going to be my plus 1. Just added parentheses wrong. Okay, that's going to be my plus 1. So I'm going to get 0.0108 for the positive one. I'm going to hit second entry. Go down here and change my plus to a minus. Hit equals. Got that one. There we go. So, those are my x-intercepts. Here we go. All right, so let's see what you don't get it? What do you not get about that?
How you got negative 2.08?
You see how I put it in the calculator? I just put it directly in right here. I can't calculate that in my head. All right, let me finish getting the answers and then we can answer questions in just a second, okay? And so those are my x-intercepts. And so now that I have the equation, I'm going to use the calculator to find the other things. I asked you to find the vertex, axis of symmetry. That's the other two things I asked you to find. So I'm going to go to y equals. I already had the equation in there because I was working it. I'm going to hit graph. I'm going to go second, calc. And I'm going to find it's a minimum. All I have to know is I need to know it's a minimum. Left bound, right bound. My middle just has to be in the middle. And there's my vertex. Negative 0.5, negative 10. Which one of those represents the axis of symmetry? The negative 0.5, which is the x value, and the negative 10 would represent the what? Which is the minimum. Negative 10 is the minimum.